In the last video, we learned that when we use React Router, we need to make sure that every component is going to fetch its own data. Because if we don't, if we rely upon a user first going to page A and then over to page B, eventually a user is going to go straight to page B, and the data that you might expect to have is not going to actually exist. All right, so now that we've learned that lesson, we're going to open up our stream edit component again, and we're going to make sure that this thing starts to fetch its own data. Now, as a quick reminder, if we also open up our actions index.js file, you'll recall that we have an action creator called fetch stream. And if we call this thing with an ID, this action creator will fetch that particular stream. So essentially, anytime our stream edit component is mounted on the screen or is rendered to the screen, we want to make sure we call fetch stream with the ID of the stream that we want to fetch. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to flip back over to stream edit. Step 1 is going to be to refactor this thing into a class-based component so that we can use the component did mount lifecycle method. So I'm going to remove the const stream edit and replace it with class stream edit extends react.component. I'm then going to wrap those two lines inside of a render method, like so. I'm going to remove the semicolon at the very end of the class that I don't need anymore. I'll then define a component did mount lifecycle method, and inside there, I'm going to call this.props.fetch stream. Singular, no S there, just stream, because we want to fetch the one stream that we're trying to show on the screen. And then we're going to call that, and we need to make sure that we pass in the ID of the stream that we're trying to fetch. Remember, our props object has the match params ID property. That's the ID coming out of our URL up here at the top. So when we call fetch stream, I'm going to pass in this.props.match params ID. That's a long one right there, but that's pretty much what we want to pass in. All right, now let's test this out. Now, it's incredibly likely that we might see an error here. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but let's just try to save this and see what happens. All right, so I'll flip back over, and sure enough, quick error message here. So it looks like my render method, I had a reference to props. Remember, when we make use of a class-based component, it has to be this.props. That's better. So now I'll save again. I'll flip back over, and again, I see an error message. All right, looks like I'm going too quickly here. I need to slow down just a little bit. So I tried to call fetch stream, but I never actually wired up that action creator. So at the top, I'll make sure that I import fetch stream from up two directories, actions. And then I need to make sure that I pass off fetch stream to connect down at the bottom. Okay, I think now it's hopefully going to work out. So let's try this one more time. All right, so I can flip back over. You'll notice I now see two console logs here when the page first loads up. The reason I see two is because our component renders to the screen one time, and we see the console log from the render method right there. We then attempt to fetch our stream. After we successfully get our stream from the API, our component is rendered again, and that's why we see the console log appear a second time. So if we look in the first console log right here, we're going to see that stream is undefined. So that's the first console log where we have not yet gotten our stream. Then if we expand the second console log, I'll see that the stream has now been successfully fetched and is showing up inside of my component. Perfect! All right, couple errors there, my mistake on that, but it looks like we got everything working as expected. So now if we really wanted to complete our little task here, we could attempt to, say, print out this.props.stream.title. There's just one thing to be aware of here. Remember, when our component is first rendered, this.props.stream will be undefined. So if we tried to print out .title when we don't have the stream inside of our component, we're going to see that classic error message, something like, yeah, here it is right here, cannot read property of undefined. So something that we need to do inside of here, something we've done many times before, essentially we just need to put in a little if statement and say if we do not have our stream, then return like a div that says loading or something like that, like so. So if we have not yet loaded up our stream, no problem, we'll return the div with loading. Otherwise, if we do have our stream, attempt to print out the title. So now we can save this again, and we'll see the name of the stream that I'm trying to edit, which is I created this stream. All right, so that's pretty much going to take care of our data loading stuff. Now, everything that you see inside of stream edit right now is going to essentially be repeated almost line for line over to our other two components of stream delete and stream show. Because remember, both stream delete and stream show need to load up the appropriate stream in order to show some details about it on the screen. So for example, when we try to show a window or a message to the user that says, are you sure you want to delete this stream? We'll probably end up wanting to put like the title of the stream on there as well. So we'll need to fetch the stream ahead of time. And then for stream show, same thing, very obvious in that case. Whenever a user is looking at a stream, yeah, we need to load it up. So we need to make sure that we wire up the stream show component to fetch the data that it needs as well. So again, what you see inside of here is going to be just about duplicated into those other two components as well in the future when we start to work with them. All right, so let's take a pause here now that we've got our data. When we come back the next section, we're going to start to put together the actual edit stream form. And there's going to be a little fun twist around this component that we haven't quite spoken about just yet. So let's take a pause and we'll get to it in the next video.